Hey guys, Mumbles here with another New World video, and this is our first New World actual, like, kind of, I guess, information video. Today we're gonna go over the best damage over time musket and rapier build. That is correct, musket rapier build, best damage over time. This is gonna be stacking the bleeds as well as the burning from the musket, and this is one of the, I guess, builds that I ran most of the beta. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, not only in PvE but also PvP. It didn't work well for big, I guess, 1v like 2 or 3, 4 people. It did work best 1v1 as well as some 1v2 situations because your AoE, bleed attack, and that kind of stuff. So it did work in some cases. However, it was best for one-on-one. And PvE, it is the best for boss fights because you can kind of do your bleed and your burn damage and kind of move away while your friends tank the damage, and tank hits. So it is a fantastic thing for PvE, but still works in PvP very, very well. So I want to share that with you guys today, and I want to show you guys my Rapier and Musket damage over time build, or DOT build. So let's jump in to some New World content. I am super excited to start this stuff finally. Super, super excited to start the content for New World. Absolutely loved it. If you didn't play the beta, boy, it is worth it for only like 40 bucks, man. It is so worth it. Go check it out. I hope this gameplay kind of helps you guys out making decisions. I'll also have my final review out soon, so stay tuned for that. All right, so this is the stats I generally ran with for New World the beta. I went full dex. I did put 50 in Constitution because if I was soloing, I did want some sort of survivability. However, if you're going into war and you have all the tanks, you're going into an expedition, you have some really good tank players with you, you could definitely respect to go full dex to do the max amount of damage. However, you can also kind of fix that with gear that you get. It's just, for some reason, I wanted a little bit more survivability in my build, because most of the time I was either soloing or I was playing with huge groups and I just didn't respect. I was just too lazy to. It's not that hard, but this is what I went: 150 dex, 50 constitution, plus my gear. I think my dex was at like 190 or something like that, and then my con was at like 80 after the gear. I got some really lucky rolls and some gear that was created for me as well as what I made, so that really worked out for us quite well. Now into our first weapon build here, we're gonna go ahead and look into the bleeding as far as the rapier. Now, rapier, I think, was the funnest build that I found. I did like the sound effects of the hammer when on my strength con character. However, rapier I had a lot more fun with because of how quick and get cooldowns and how much damage I could do over time. So first off, we're going to start with the first level. I got Tondo first, Flurry second, so I went 1, 2. That way I can get my abilities first. I got finished third, and then I went back up and got reduced cooldowns by 1% on any hit. That also counts for the flurry hits. So the flurry hits that does 5 quick thrust attacks, you get 5% off of your cooldowns. And so Tondo, slash so quickly that it extends the reach of your blade. This strike deals direct damage, but also applies a bleed that deals 100% weapon damage over 12 seconds. This can stack up to 3 times refreshing previous applications. Now with this, you also get the thirst for blood when applying the first bleed stack to an opponent. This cooldown is reduced by 10%. So you lose a second on it, which makes it 10 seconds, which means you can Tondo twice before the stack is done. Next, you have and again. If you hit only one target, even on a blocked hit, this cooldown is reduced by 25%, which is still great. So they block your hit, your cooldown drops by 3 or 4 seconds, which makes it even quicker. That way you can recover and try to get it on the next thing if they're like a tank and they're blocking a lot. This helps out with those kind of situations, especially PvP. Proper spacing, improve your direct damage from Tondo by 100% if you're more than 4 meters away. This does lead to a little bit of technicality with trying to understand the fundamentals and basics of distance and stuff like that in the game. Now, you can't strike too far with Tondo, so you're in with a very short range to hit this. However, if you do hit this, increasing that by 100%, so doubling your damage, is quite nice, especially for each tick over a time of 12 seconds. It works out very, very nice with Tondo, and I absolutely love this combination, and I love Tondo as a whole. This build wasn't overpowered, but it was very balanced and very fun to use. So, Engrade, deal 10% more damage when your target has greater than 50% health. This is easy to do at the beginning when you first engage your fights. Doing 10% damage on your bleeds, and then as well as Flurry is very, very helpful. 10% is quite a bit. So it was nice to be able to get them down to 50% health pretty quickly. Unerring, deal 5% more damage to targets with a Rapier bleed. You always Tondo first, and then I usually Flurry. So Tondo, then Flurry, and that way you can get the 5% more damage to the bleeds on each hit. So the Flurry with the 5 hits, you now are doing 5% extra damage on each hit. At that point, I then got Flourish and Finish because I wanted a third ability. So Flourish performs an attacking, knocking back enemies. Pressing light attack at the end of Flourish will continue the ability by automatically performing Finish. Finish lunges form and consuming all Rapier bleeds on any target hit, dealing 110% of their damage immediately. This is really important in a couple minutes when we start stacking our bleeds, and how we can quickly stack our bleeds over time and get those 3 stacks, use it, get that 110% on each stack, causing 330% damage. Very, very nice. There's a lot of damage if you can get the stacks off with Tondo. So next, we did Light Edge. Increased damage from both middle swipe attacks and in light stack chain by 8%. This will just get a little bit more damage out of our basic attacks if we ended up missing a couple of our flourish hits and didn't get our cooldowns as low as we wanted. However, with this stack as well, you can get flourish almost down to a 0% or like 100% like just immediate recharge if you get all your hits off on flourish and a couple of these abilities. It helps out with trying to get back the abilities and trying to just, you can continuously flourish off over and over and over and over, which is quite nice. So with flourish, we kind of built out flourish a little bit more. So we gain grit on both flourish and finish, as well as the plus 20% damage when successfully hitting a target with finish. We then did heavy puncture. Any heavy attack on a bleeding enemy will extend their rapier bleeds by 2 seconds. So instead of the original 12 seconds, we're now doing 14 seconds with a base like 9-second cooldown. And if you hit Tondo or you hit Flurry, you're getting down to like a 4 or 5 second. You can see how this is starting to stack up and stack the bleeds and stuff like that. So this will also apply future stacked applications of the same bleed, extending the entire stack. So it doesn't matter how many stacks you have on there, it'll do the entire thing by 2 seconds every heavy attack. So you can keep heavy attacking every about second and a half, extending that by 2 seconds, buying time to either Tondo again or flourish and finish. We then built out Flurry a little bit more. So each hit of Flurry does 25% more block damage. So if you're going up against tank, this helps out with those situations where they're going to be blocking your attacks a lot. You can really help out with that. Fleeting Strikes. Each hit of Flurry reduces the cooldown of this ability by 7%. So again, we're stacking up with the percentage of cooldowns, where each hit is all reduce all cooldowns by 1% on any hit. And then you're adding the 7% on each hit of Flurry. So 7, so 35 plus 5, so you're getting 40% cooldown on every Flurry hit if you hit every single time. Now, To the Bone is one of the most important things here. I did get this a little bit earlier. However, I'm trying to figure out where to put it in my build. Next time I might build Flurry out and Tondo out first and then work on Flourish and Finish. So each hit on Flurry extends the Rapier's bleed by 1 second. So again, you now have an added 5 seconds, so you're doing about 2 seconds worth of the action. So you're getting about 3 seconds there in the action time to extend the bleeds and stack those bleeds so you can do the Flurry and Finish so that you can deal all that damage. This will also apply to all future stacked applications of the same bleed extending the entire stack. The last hit of Flurry will cause the enemy to stagger. This gives you the time to hit Tondo again and then Flurry and Finish to do that max damage. So the way I usually did this is I usually did Tondo, then Flurry, and then Tondo again. And I would try to get my third stack. If I couldn't get my third stack, I'd just Flurry and Finish and get the stagger. and the pushback. And then if I can get that third stack, that Flurry and Finish did a ton of damage against 1v1 PvP, and I absolutely love this build. The last thing we did is Bloody End. Finish deals 150% of the Rapier's bleed damage instead of only 110. So this does the stacks from Flurry and Finish with 110 on each stack. It now does 150. So building out full blood, you can do a ton of damage. If you get that full 3 stacks on there, you can do a ton of damage within one hit and take out. I was taking out like 75% of people's health in one go. If I can get my stacks off well and they weren't blocking that well, I would get them down to like 75% health gone within one combo. It was absolutely devastating, and that was only running in 50 con. I'm sure with full decks, it probably would have been a whole different story. It was a great combo. I absolutely love this, the blood part of the Rapier. A lot of people went with evade or riposte, whatever you say it, instead of Flurry, but building the bleeding stacks and everything was where I was kind of coming in handy, and that was working for me, and I absolutely love this build. Super fun, super technical, but still pretty easy to understand. Our second weapon is our musket, and this is kind of what we engaged our enemies with. So we would use the musket first, engage your enemies, and then you'd have the rapier for close combat. So in the musket, the only thing we took on the right side was 10% increase the damage to targets below 30% health, and this will come a little bit more relevant here in a minute. We started with power shot just so we could have an ability. Landing 3 headshots within 5 seconds of each other grants an instant reload. This is kind of hard with just the base kind of attacks, but when we get down to a couple of the other abilities, you'll see why this kind of works out well. Called shot, increased musket damage by 5% if aimed down sights for more than 3 seconds. So this would help out. You just aim down sights for 3 seconds before pulling the trigger. Pull the trigger, you get an extra 5% damage, especially engaging any mobs or enemies in the wild. It's not hard to just wait the 3 seconds, get the extra 5% damage. Initial engagement, when you hit a power shot again, gain in power, causing attacks to deal an additional 10% damage for 5 seconds. Getting in power with the musket is key with this build, just so you can keep racking up the higher damage with each shot. Powder burn. This is where we're going to go into our DOT a little bit. Overload musket with gunpowder, causing the next shot to deal 110% weapon damage, cause a burn status effect that deals 20% weapon damage for 9 seconds. Does not stack or combine with other overload overload shots. So power shot, powder burn, and stopping power are all overload shots. So keep that in mind. Chronic trauma. If powder burn is a headshot, extended burn duration to 13 seconds. This is to get that DOT while they're getting close to you, and then you take out your rapier and do the DOT with a bleed. I built out burn quickly just so I can get that extra DOT once they got to me, and then I was able to take out my rapier and do all the bleed damage. And it just worked very well because it would definitely take them within 13 seconds to get to me. So I can then stack the burn on top of the 2 bleeds before the burn went away. And at that point, adding my third bleed onto them, which replaced the burn with more damage. It was just an all-around, like, they were taking damage every second they were fighting me. Empowering headshot. On a successful headshot, grant empower. Again, we're getting empower some more. Increase all musket shots damage by 10% for 5 seconds. Doing the power shot, engage, then do your burn. You can also overload your shot and then get into shooter stance as well. So overload your shot, get into shooter stance, powder burn, I did a couple different combos. Each one worked well. Personally, I like doing the burn just because by the time I was at a shooter stance, they were at me, and I had to take out my rapier anyways. First blood, deal an additional 10% damage to targets with full health. So that's when you start leading with your power shot and then taking out your burn shot afterwards, just to deal a 10% damage at full health. Bullseye, power shot headshots, reduce power shots cooldown by 15%. This wasn't huge. You could actually replace this with increases stamina damage, and then also hitting in a target with an active debuff triggers empower too. You could do either one if you don't want to worry about this. The way that the combo works is taking power shot, then powder burn, or power shot, shooter stance, and powder burn, or however you want to combo it. It's not needed, but it does help a little bit if you do want to do the power shot a little bit more. If you end up taking traps rather than power burn or power shot, that is another way to do it as well. Ballistic advantage removes damage fall off from the standard musket shots on targets more than 50 meters away. This is key for PvP. If you're fighting another ranged person, you can stay outside that 50 meter range. You're going to do extra damage. And this is key for those PvP when people are either spellcasters or other musket or bow users. This is key for that. Standard attack headshots reduce all musket ability cooldowns by 10%. Again, this is for more of dealing with ranged PvP or a ranged PvE person. If you're trying to stand back at PvE and do long shot damage, that's what that's more for. At that point, we ended up getting shooter stance. Shooter stance, player enters a shooting aim stance to enhance shooting performance. Shots deal 100% weapon damage, while in stance mobility is reduced to 0, and reload time is by 75%, or reduced by 75%. Mode will exit after 3 shots. Cooldown's 20 seconds. Usually you only use this to engage. There is a little bit of an animation time after you get out of it, so keep that in mind if you have someone charging at you. And you can also, if you hit the aim button, he cancels the ability and gets out of it. Shoot more. Shots fired before exiting stance increases to 5 from 3, so you get 2 extra shots. And this, again, will stack with the 3 headshots within 5 seconds of each other. Just because they're quicker shots, it's a little bit easier to get those 3 headshots to gain the instant reload to make your shots a little bit quicker. Marksman and 3 consecutive shots hit the same target, reduce all of the musket cooldowns by 25%. This is one of those that if you're in long range, it works well. If you're not, if you're going for more PvE or PvP like Outpost Rush and stuff like that, where you're going to be more close combat, you may want to replace this with another one of these abilities here. Maybe even the dodge one so you can gain haste. Next thing is heightened precision. While aiming successful hits with a musket, grant is stackable 2.5% damage increase. This effect ends with when player starts aiming down sights more than 5 seconds passes between shots, max 6 stacks. So as long as you're aiming down sights, you can start gaining extra damage. This works well for PvE specifically, so keep that in mind. Hit your mark. Increase headshot and critical hit damage to target further than the target is away from the player for a max of 15% up to 100 meters away. So this is really nice, especially if you're able to land those headshots and land your shots. This also works pretty well with Trapper as well if you decide to take Trapper. I saw someone using traps and sticky bombs with the shooter stance. That's for more people that if you're not really flicky, you're not used to like FPS and you need to like slow things down to get your shots off. Trapper using traps is definitely the way to go, at least for PvE. PvP, they're very easily to kind of walk around, so they don't work that well. Last thing is Sniper. Adds an additional 3 times zoom for all musket aim shots. Use mouse wheel up and down to zoom in and out while aiming. Also grants a 15% damage increase to all headshots. This is important for wars, for the initial fight in the war, as well as any outpost rush, that kind of stuff. The 3 times zoom really comes in handy for that. Otherwise, you could definitely switch that out for something else if you're not worried about that. So this is mainly our build for damage over time. You can kind of see how the stacks go with the burn, the bleed, and once you get into the rapier, stacking those bleeds, getting the flurry off, getting the finish off at the very end with the 3 stacks of bleed is key to dealing that damage over time, as well as taking that big solid hit at the end. I hope this helps you guys out with trying to kind of choose what class to do. I'm going to do a few of these over the time because I did do a strength and con person, so I did try out the spear, the great axe, the hammer, the shield and sword, and then I'll tell you the other combinations I had with the dexterity builds as well. I'm trying to help you guys out, choose what you want to build. It's not hard to change your classes in game too, so keep that in mind as well. It's pretty easy to kind of respec and just choose a different skill set with different stats and different weapons. So I hope this helps you guys out. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell if you guys like this video. And don't forget to check out a live stream because, boy, when New World starts, we're going to be grinding this game again. I had so much fun with this and so much fun in the community. And so far, it seems like at least the Syndicate community wants to stick together. So I'm looking forward to a lot of streams with other streamers in our Discord and stuff like that. So thank you guys. Have a great night. Goodbye. Deuces.